these robots are on the cusp of becoming a reality, is my simple thesis. And I think that over the next, maybe not in the next year or so, but definitely over the next 5 years, you're going to see a huge upswing of this. And Tesla is simply at the lead right now. There's no other major competitor.
DM, good morning. Welcome to the Milk Road AI podcast, the AI podcast that shows you where value accrues in the AI stack while everyone else argues about AGI timelines. I'm your host, Kyle Reedhead. Today's guest is Ejaaz. Previously worked at major crypto firms, including Coinbase and Consensus, is now an investor at 26 Crypto Capital and host of the amazing AI podcast, Limitless. Make sure you check that one out if you want to learn more about AI. Today, we're going to chat all about AI, of course. We'll talk, are we in an AI bubble or not? And then we're just going to talk about some of the best companies in the world, Google, Nvidia, Tesla, Meta. And we're just going to chat about, are they overvalued or undervalued? And how do they fit in the future world of AI dominance? Now, before we get into it, before I bring Ejaaz on, we're kicking off our Black Friday offer here at Milk Road. For the next week, you can get 40% off Milk Road Pro All Access. That's a crypto, macro, and AI Pro membership all in one. The three biggest investing trends of our lifetimes rolled into one plan at 40% off. Upgrade before midnight on Cyber Monday to lock in serious investing intel across three verticals at a serious discount. All right, without further ado, let's bring Ejaaz on. How you doing, my man?
Hey, thanks for having me on, Carl. I'm super excited about this. I'm used to being in your seat where I'm interviewing other people about their thoughts on AI. And as a result, I feel like I'm locked in a room sometimes. So it's fun to be able to share my thoughts. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. We're excited to have you on. It's time for you to release, and you get to share everything you've been wanting to say, all your opinions. So we're excited for it. Let's start with the age-old question. I mean, everyone's been asking this for the last couple of weeks. I don't really understand why we're asking this, but it is a question in markets. And so, are we in an AI bubble? How do you think through this? What data or what data points do you look at to try to decide this? If we're not, do you think we're going to be eventually? What's your kind of time frame on that? Walk me through how you think about this whole conversation around AI bubble.
Okay, so let's see. I do not think we are in an AI bubble. However, I do think we are in an environment where it is inflating valuations. But I don't think we're at the point where we're in a big bubble or at the point where the bubble is about to burst. And I think a big reason why a lot of people listening to this and in general are saying that we are in a big bubble is because they're seeing very big numbers, Carl. They're seeing Elon Musk signing a $1 trillion comp package. They're seeing OpenAI committing $1.4 trillion alone to spend on compute over the next 5 years. And they're thinking, these numbers are way too big. This doesn't make any sense. You know where this kind of behavioral aptitude appeared last? During the dot-com boom.
Okay.
Well, crypto as well, but during the dot-com boom, but you're right on both accounts. But during the dot-com boom, we had a bubble there, but you had the first appearances of billionaires, right, and then multi-billionaires, and that transition kind of took a while to happen. I think we're seeing the same thing here on the AI side. Now, to talk about the bubble specifically, and to kind of break down why I don't think we're in one, it's important to kind of like define the characteristics of a bubble, right? Typically, when you're in a bubble, things are levered in the financial market. What I mean by that is people are gambling way more money than they can afford to gamble. And it's happening across not just gambling addicts, but it's happening across companies which probably shouldn't be doing that because they're providing a very valuable service to the rest of the world, aka Google, Meta, Microsoft, the companies that have typically earned a lot of money that make up the majority of the stock market's gains this year. If they're gambling with leverage, we're definitely in a bubble. Now, let's look at the numbers. So number one, a lot of people think that a major bit of evidence for we're in a bubble is GPUs. There's too many GPUs being produced. There's too many GPUs being sold. And these GPUs don't last as long as they should do. Well, if you look at any earnings reports from any of the major GPU providers, you'll see that this is instantly not true. Nvidia is sold out for the next 6 months. AMD is sold out for the next 6 months. Even you call them neo clouds. Think of it as like AWS, but they sell AI compute specifically, like CoreWeave, also booked out 6 months in advance. And then the critic will respond and say, well, yeah, they're selling to people who don't have any demand but are getting caught up in the hype, Well, actually, the major purchasers of those GPUs are the big companies. They are Meta, Microsoft, Google, and many others, right? And so I look at them and I'm saying, well, are you guys just buying compute for nothing? And then I look at their numbers and they are just like oversubscribed, right? I'll give you an example. OpenAI, which is typically used as the linchpin for this, right, are currently operating at a loss. When they launched their recent social media app, it's called Sora 2. It's kind of like TikTok, but it's all AI generated content, Kyle. They, at peak performance, use 70% of the compute that they had available. They don't have enough GPUs. They can't afford to do that, right? They're using it to train other models. So the point I'm making and getting at is GPUs aren't in oversupply. They're actually in undersupply. And there's not enough to kind of meet that. So I'll pause there, but that's kind of like my main thesis.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think when you look at earnings too, they're just going through the roof. I mean, look at Nvidia
Yep.
last week, right? They had
Yep.
absolute killer numbers. For whatever reason, Nvidia is down 20. Well, we'll talk about the reason, but Nvidia actually continues to go down since then. But I think for me, that was your kind of telltale sign. Like, look, there's still so much demand here. And I think the difference between now and the .com boom was, in the .com boom, there was no users, there was no revenue, right? It was hype and promise, which somewhat similar to crypto in 2021, to be completely honest. There was users and there was people coming in, but ultimately there wasn't really any fundamental earnings being made. And so, it crashed, whatever, 90% or whatever it was in 2022. But this time around, like you said, it is well capitalized companies that their earnings continue to go up. And so, like, the PE ratios are high,
Yeah.
but they're not extraordinary high outside of Tesla, but they're always high. So
It's,
it's hard to argue.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I would, sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to make a point on a really good thing that you just said, which is if you look at these companies, like you compared it to crypto, right? In crypto, it was mainly speculative mania. People were
Yeah.
like buying shit coins or penny stocks. That's the
Yeah.
equivalent, right? Completely different game here. You've got people paying for subscriptions, using the thing every day.
Yeah. The moment it launches.
ChatGPT on their last update, exactly at the moment they launch, ChatGPT on their last update has 800 million weekly active users. Normally they give you monthly. They give you weekly, right? That's probably at 1 billion active users. That is insane for a single company that's been alive for less than 3 years, right? So it's a completely different ballgame. People are paying money for these different things. And then on the point that you mentioned around like Nvidia being down, when have markets been completely efficient? The whole point is like they're not efficient, right? So there are always going to be benefits through investing in companies where there's opportunity.
Yeah. I tweeted out, I think it was like last week, and I said the only people that think we're in an AI bubble are people that don't run companies and aren't using AI, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
when you're running a company and you're basically screaming at everyone, we need to use more AI, we need to use more AI because it's allowing you to do so much more and save so much. And then you start using it, you're like, shit, I'm not using it enough. I need to use it even more and even more and even more. And I was talking to my writer today for one of our newsletters, for the crypto newsletter. We were basically saying the interesting thing about AI is like, when the internet first came along and everyone started building websites and doing things, and there was all that hype there, you would build a website, but there was no one there to use it. So it actually wasn't a thing that was more profitable to you right off the bat. It took a long
Right.
time for people to actually like get computers and then connect to the internet, etc. In crypto, same thing's happening right now. It's like, yes, there are many efficiencies with the blockchain, but like for me to launch my company's asset on the blockchain rather than do an IPO, it doesn't make sense because most of the world's capital is on public markets. It's not on a
Yep.
blockchain today, right? So like, yes, it will eventually be a better move, but today technically it's not. But the interesting thing about AI is there's no waiting. It's just like the moment that that product is launched and you use it, it's just immediate efficiencies, right? So your earnings just go up. You can sell more, you can save more, whatever it is, and it just keeps happening. You don't have to wait for users to come. It's just like you just integrate it into your company, and boom, the results are there. Or personally, the results are there. So it's like it's an adoption curve that probably we haven't really seen before. I'm not even sure exactly what to compare it to, but it's just so real. And it's like every day I'm like, damn, there's something more we got to be doing, right? You didn't have that really with crypto, blockchain, or with the internet.
Yeah.
Curious if you see
You
the
can't.
same.
Yeah, I agree. You can't really compare AI to any previous technology revolution because, well, okay. So here's the connection. I would argue that every previous technology revolution, which was mainly epitomized by the internet boom most recently, over the last like couple of decades, is a move from manual to convenience. Okay, I don't have to walk down my high street. Sorry. Oh, I don't have to walk to the specific shop to buy the clothes. Oh, now they've brought all the clothing shops together on this thing called a high street. Now I just got to walk down the high street and I'll live near there. Oh, now I don't even need to go to the high street. I could go to this website. All I got to do is type www. blah, 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 and I could go to this website and I can browse it, but I can't really purchase it because payments don't exist yet. Oh, now I have payments. And Amazon was birthed and stuff like that. We've all been kind of like this entire time moving towards a point of like infinite convenience around whatever you want to do. AI is the number one accelerator of this. You can go from an idea to a physical or digital manifestation in a matter of seconds, right? I was writing an article before this, which is going to go out on the Limitless newsletter this week, about ephemeral AI. People are talking about like Claude's, Anthropic's new coding agent, which is like new cutting edge. And everyone's like, who cares? I don't use the coding thing. And I'm like, you're not going to use it. You're going to consume it. Because in the future, you will not go to a website. The website will just be built in front of you in real time in less than a second. And it'll be personalized to your tastes. And you just go and buy things, right? And that's a really hard thing for people to wrap their head around, right? It's hard for me to wrap my head around. Well, like, what does that exist? What kind of form factor do you use for that? Do you use your phone? Do I use a laptop? Probably not, right? It's probably a chip in my head to process things like that. So it's kind of weird and wonderful. And AI is kind of like the endpoint for that.
It's so hard to grasp what that's going to look like and how that's all going to work and what the world's going to look like then. As an investor, though, I would say some of your best bets that you can do is probably stay in the companies that are farthest ahead in this, which we're going to talk about right now. This is your Googles of the world, your Nvidias, your Teslas, et cetera. But Google's one you've been talking about a lot, and it's recently gotten a lot of attention. It's funny, about a year ago, I couldn't say that. I would probably say the opposite, where everyone was counting it out, thought ChatGPT was going to take it over, and now it's just on an absolute tear. And you've been tweeting about it a ton recently, and you actually did a full podcast on it on Limitless, which was great. Walk me through your thesis on why you think Google is such an important company as this sort of like AI dominance takes over.
Sure. So let me start by saying I was the biggest Google hater there is. I hated how bureaucratic the company had become. They weren't really shipping interesting products. And for me, being a retail consumer, they didn't nail that either, right? Yeah. And then they launched their first AI product. It was called Bard, B-A-R-D. Do you remember that, Kyle? And one of its specific capabilities was you could write some text to it, and it would create an image for whatever text you'd written. And someone asked it to create an image of the American forefathers. And it created a very ethnically inaccurate picture of who the American forefathers were. And everyone made a laughingstock out of Google. Their stock tanked, and Sundar was on the verge of being fired. But they turned it around really quickly after that. Sergey Brin, one of the former co-founders, one of the co-founders and former management operative at Google, stepped in and said, I'm taking over the AI side of things. And since then, they've been on an uphill kind of like transcendence into what they've produced. So that brings me to my point around why Google is the best AI company to invest in right now at a very hefty price, by the way. I think it's like $3.7 trillion. I think it's like the second or third most valuable company in the world right now. They just beat Microsoft or something like that. So here's a basic thesis. It is the only vertical integrated AI company that is in existence right now. What do I mean by that? Okay.
That was my question.
Okay. So what the hell do I mean by that, right? I've just, said a bunch of like words. Okay. So if you think of AI as like an entire stack of things that you need to make the AI thing, you've got the hardware that you need to use to train the AI model. You've got the data that you need to feed into the hardware to train the AI model. You have the compute that you need to kind of mix in with all of this. Then you have the AI model itself. Then you need customers to send the AI model to. And then on top of all of that, you have apps, you have applications, right? You have distribution. Google dominates in all of those things. Typically, when you have a number one leading company in a specific technology stack, they dominate in one area. It's apps. ChatGPT is really good for that, for OpenAI. or you operate in hardware only. That's Nvidia. They got all these GPUs. Google dominates in all of those things, and they have a ready-to-go customer base that they can kind of ship these things to, right? So let's look at some of the most valuable companies in AI, right? Like just within each parts of those stacks. Nvidia, richest company in the world right now. It's at what, like 4 point something trillion dollars, right?
Yep.
Huge.
Yep.
Why are they valued that much? Because they're selling the picks and shovels for people to create their AI models. They're selling the hardware. Okay, cool. That's great. GPUs. They have zero competition, Kyle. They've been in this game for a while. Except Google stepped in with their version of GPUs called TPUs, and they happen to be 40 to 60% cheaper, but produce 1.5 to 2 times more performance per dollar spent on GPUs. Ooh, now we have a competitor, but no one really believed it, Carl, until they released Gemini 3, which broke every single benchmark and is like leagues ahead of any other model. In fact, Sam Altman this week went on record in an internal memo saying to his company, hey, we're going to face a few economic headwinds because Google's model is just that good, right? So people didn't take them seriously as a hardware proponent. Now you can compare Google to Nvidia. Okay, what does that valuation become just from a hardware perspective? But Google has all these other advantages. They have apps. Everyone uses Gmail. Everyone, or majority of the world, has an Android device. Everyone uses kind of like all the G Suite set of tools, Google Docs, Excel. They can just plug their AI model into all of these different things. And suddenly you have not only an available AI model, you have a productive AI model that people want to use and can use. And then the third and final thing, Kyle, and there's so much more, but I'm not going to, harp on about it. They have all the data.
Mm-hmm.
What's the number one thing you need to make your model better over time? Assuming you can buy all the compute in the world, assuming you have all the GPUs.
It's data.
It's data. And Google has the most data. It's the number one product that they still have, Google Search. Everyone thought that ChatGPT was going to kill Google Search. Those stats have reversed now because Gemini has just been integrated into Google Search, and it is so, so good.
Mm-hmm. So lots to unpack there. When you think of Google, in the way you sort of think about valuing them, do you think of them as a competitor to Nvidia? Like they've historically used these TPUs just internally so that they can, as you said, create better products, create better models. But now I think recently, was it this week, there's supposed to be an announcement between Meta and Google. And I think it's of the tune of billions of dollars to buy those TPUs. Do you think Google's actually going to go and start competing with Nvidia and selling TPUs globally?
Yeah, I didn't buy it either, but too many news stories have leaked by the same media publisher the information, which means that they have an insider. That tells me that they're going to go head to head with Nvidia, and why wouldn't they? Because they tried to with Google Cloud against AWS, and they lost it, and they're so bitter about it. So they now want to be ahead of Amazon with AWS, and they want to be the number one GPU provider. And so, yeah, I think they are going to go head to head with Nvidia because it is a very profitable business. So what's the evidence? You mentioned that this week there are rumors that they're going to sign a deal where Meta buys billions and billions of dollars of Google TPUs. Let's wait to see if that's confirmed, but that's one bit of news. News that broke last month was Anthropic, which, by the way, Google owns 14% of, is set to access 1 million of their TPUs next year to train Claude 5 and 6. Okay. And then another bit of evidence, which also dropped this week, Kyle, is there's a NATO deal that's on the line here for, I think, $10 to $50 billion worth of Google TPUs. So as you can tell, like, I don't think Google's going to turn down $150 billion worth of TPUs to add to the balance sheet and give them more capex exposure to train better AI models and buy more TPUs. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, in my opinion, at this point, that they will sell TPUs. I will say that TPUs are kind of limited versus GPUs because they're kind of constricted towards specific use cases. So I don't think NVIDIA and them will compete directly, but there'll be some overlap.
So, well, actually, let's talk about that with Nvidia just for a quick second, and I think we'll get back to Google. Is this a bearish thing for Nvidia, or is this actually just a bullish thing overall? Because it just means that the market can continue to expand. Because as you said, Nvidia is sold out, right? Like they can't make enough GPUs. Now you've got Google over here making TPUs, potentially stealing some share away from Nvidia, or are they really stealing share away? And it's just, they're helping to push this thing forward and create ultimately better products, which is just going to drive more demand. How do you think of it?
Bearish short term for Nvidia,
Okay.
because people are just going to be emotional and speculative about it and dump the stock because they believe like Google's going to replace Nvidia. Long term, extremely, extremely bullish, both of those companies. In fact, I bought some Nvidia this morning because, God, what is the name of the paradox? I'm forgetting that. Whatever. I'm going to describe it to you. Basically, the assumption is if you oversupply the market with GPUs or TPUs or infrastructure, demand just won't be there. But what is often found is with any new technological revolution, demand doesn't just increase, it multiplies massively. So if there's more available compute, I forget the name of it. It's annoying
it's killing me. I wish there was an AI I could just talk to and ask you right now, or someone that was.
Well, I'm going to ask for it right now as you respond. Okay. Yeah, but basically that's my response. Yeah.
Okay. That was sort of my original thinking too when I saw this, and I'm like, oh, Nvidia down 20%. A lot of this is because of this. It's down, I think, 4% today. That's generally markets just getting a little bit too emotionally biased here. I'm pretty sure that this is a net positive for the industry. Did you come up with the word before I continue my question?
No, I did not. I was listening to you. I wanted to be focused on you.
Okay. I'm sure someone in the comments will help us out. Back to Google then. So this is almost a $4 trillion company. Maybe I'm not sure if it is 4 trillion at the moment as we're talking here, but it's getting close anyway. How high is this thing going to go? Like, where do you think this can go here? And is it valued based off of the amount of TPUs it can sell? Is it the products it's going to create? I guess it's probably just a combination of them. Like, what is the real upside here for Google as a $4 trillion company already? The highest I think Nvidia got to was around 5 trillion. Is this thing going to 10? Is it going to 20? Like, what is your kind of assumption on where this goes in the next, I don't know, year, 2 years, 3 years? And what's the reason for it?
All of those figures you just mentioned, 5, 10, 15, I believe it'll hit. Over what timeline, I do not know.
Who knows? Yeah.
But the confidence that I have that it will reach it is because if you speak to anyone about the heights that AI can reach when it comes to transforming the way that we interact with things online and in physical reality, once you've got robots like Tesla's Optimus and stuff, humanoid robots coming out, people can't even fathom what that looks like, Kyle. That's the most bullish thing, right? I might sound like a crazy crypto guy, right? But I'm not talking about a white paper. I'm talking about the biggest companies in the world who have been cash flow positive for decades that aren't spending hundreds of billions of dollars because they're idiots, right? I'm talking about the finest entrepreneurs of our time committing that time and effort to this and saying that, there's a lot of demand for these things. This thing is going to go way, way higher, right? Let me ask you, let me respond with another question. How much do you think the company that finds the cure for cancer should be worth?
I actually, I was listening to a Jordi Visser podcast a couple weeks ago, and he's like, you should put in ChatGPT and ask it, what do you think the stock market will be worth if we get a cure for cancer? And I did it the other day while I was at the gym. And so my answer is a lot. I don't know what the number is, but it's definitely a lot. That's for sure.
Yes, exactly. And so the point I'm making is I think we have ways to go. I think we're going to enter multi-decatrillion dollar companies, which again sounds insane because billionaires are billionaires and we don't really have trillionaires right now. But eventually when we do have trillionaires, that'll become a normal thing, right? And so then people might respond and say, well, dude, you're just listing a bunch of numbers. Well, it's hard to measure the economic output that would come directly from a technology like AI. But because it's both such a good generalized technology as well as a hyper specialized technology, and it can feed between both of these things via data transfer to become a better product and iterate better than humans can. That's why it's hard to value, right? What happens if you 100x human economic output over the next 2 decades? How much would a company that supplies those models, that supplies that AGI worth? How much is that worth? It's hard to value, right? Google right now is a company that is known for search, advertising, Android, so mobile operating software, some devices as well, and some infrastructure, Google Cloud, TPUs. What happens when it's the company known for rejuvenating or underpinning a lot of medical progress over the next like decade? What happens when it is the number one model used for manufacturing efficiency across like all factories and supply chains? Like that's hard to kind of picture.
So is your assumption that as we get the breakthroughs that come with AI, which as you just said, could be in healthcare, could be in manufacturing, could be in, it's going to be in so many different things. It's actually probably not healthcare companies that are going to be the winner of that. Maybe it's Google. Is that what you're saying here?
Right now, yes, but I don't say that with a high percentage of confidence over that multi-decade timeline. And the reason why I say that is there are going to be so many inefficiencies and arbitration opportunities that happen between here and then. So all you can do is kind of keep your ear to the ground and see which companies are undervalued right now and which companies have the best shots to make it. And in my opinion, right now, as I'm sitting in front of you, it's Google and Tesla that have the highest likelihood to pull this off. Microsoft from the enterprise side has a good chunk right now, but it's Google and Tesla right now.
Right. Yeah. And I guess even if let's say a healthcare company does
it's Jevons paradox. I just remembered it. Jevons paradox. Sorry. Okay, go back to what you were saying. Yes.
And so even if it's not necessarily Google that has the, makes the perfect product for, I don't know, solving cancer or whatever, it's likely that the company that does it is going to be using Google,
correct,
right? Using their model, using something from them, similar to like how they might use, Amazon Web Services, right? The best companies in the world or the best websites in the world. Interesting way to put it. Okay, this is actually a great transition to Tesla. But before we do, I just want to ask, in this AI dominant world, what is the moat? Is it data, as you sort of mentioned, which is kind of the most important thing, or is there something else that is more important?
Okay, that's a really good question, and these are my thoughts. It's not a kind of hard touch answer.
Sure.
So I would say that in the short term, it is data and compute. Okay. So basically, if you mix those two things together, you get some form of the best AI model. And the AI model will dictate kind of advancements in any of the sectors that I just described: manufacturing, supply chain, cosmetics, medical research, whatever that might be. So basically, you're racing to have the best AI model for now, right? But eventually, it's going to come back to where it's always come back to, which is brand and user dominance. Who has the best kind of like moat? Now, it's a hard question to predict who that will be because we don't know what the settling factor of AI is going to be. Is it going to be ChatGPT or like a chatbot assistant that I talk to? Is it going to be chips in your brain that you kind of interface in? Whoever owns that kind of platform, in my opinion, will have the moat. You can kind of describe it as like the Apple of the future. I'm not saying it will be Apple, but whoever Apple will be will own it eventually. But I don't know what that quite looks like just yet.
Interesting. Is there also well, I guess this is definitely, I was going to say it could be also energy. You hear a lot saying like the best models need the most energy, right? Like energy is whatever consciousness or whatever the term is there. But so I think that there is a play in that as well, but I guess that's not as important, would you say? Or how does energy play into that?
Energy is super important. I'm glad you raised it. There's a famous quote from Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, over the last 2 weeks, where he goes on this interview, Kyle, and he's asked about, hey, do you think we're in an AI bubble? Like, what about all these GPUs? Like, and he answers in a very specific way. He says, number one, GPUs are in high demand. But the issue that I face is I've got $100 million worth of GPUs that are sitting in my warehouse collecting dust right now. And the interviewer asks, why? Like, why do you have that? And he responds, I don't have enough energy to supply them.
Yeah.
So if like, one of the leading CEOs of the world here, right? So the point being made here is there's a lack of energy right now. I think America is set to produce 60 extra gigawatts of energy next year. China currently has 300 gigawatts ready to go, and they're scaling that higher. So it's going to become a war of like how much energy you can get to produce to supply all these AI things. For all of the Dune fans out there, this is the spice. Energy will become the spice. But I feel like that will eventually be resolved.
Right.
And
That's
it'll, yeah.
sorry. Continue on. Continue.
No, I was going to say it's eventually going to be resolved. There's conversations from very serious companies around putting data centers in space, which sounds insane, but I think will actually eventually end up happening because it's the only way that we get like energy efficiently back down to Earth or wherever we are. So yeah, I think it eventually gets resolved and it comes back down to the hardware of AI GPUs.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When I was asking the question about energy, I was like, actually, it's more of a short-term problem, probably not a long-term problem. So
I
it's,
think
it's
so.
probably not a long-term moat. But
Yeah.
all these things give us a great transition to go into Tesla, because Tesla really is at the forefront of a lot of the things that you've talked about today, whether that is
Mm.
capturing the most data for their AI, whether that is working on the energy problem that we just talked about. They are doing literally everything. And when we talk about a full stack AI, Tesla also sits at that as well, for the most part. Walk me through your thesis of why you said Google and Tesla are your two kind of like companies that you're most bullish on for the AI space. Why is Tesla one of them?
Okay, so let's see. Tesla's a very unique company when it comes to an AI play because most people kind of look at Tesla and they're like, well, it's electric cars. What has this got anything to do with AI? And so I would say, in the same way that Google is a vertically integrated AI company, it's more obviously vertically integrated. Tesla is less so, but it's still
Mm-hmm.
there. And there's one man that ties all of this together, right? It's Elon. So, number one, my most bullish case around Tesla is it's got Elon Musk at the helm, and he's been known to deliver on a lot of these different things. He's been hell bent on transforming X into an AI company, and now XAI, his AI company, owns X, right? So he's got the data moat, right? But what he needs is some form of physical manifestation for AI. Think about this, right? Like the way you and I interact with AI on a daily basis has been through software. We talk to a chatbot, we use a coding tool, we might use the voice assistant sometimes, but mainly it's through software. But eventually, you need to transmute this AI stuff into the physical world, into physical labor, to interact with real humans, you and I. That kind of comes in the form or shape of some form of robot, right? And Elon Musk has said day in, day out, Tesla is not a car company. It is not a computer company. It is a robot company. And right now, he has two robots in the pipeline. Number one, it's Tesla, right? The actual car itself, where, it can drive autonomously. And a lot of people kind of criticized it, said, you're not going to be able to create a fully autonomous car. Now it's the leading car, right? He has a fleet of these cars daily. I think with all Teslas combined that are operational in the world right now that are driving autonomously, they put together 50 years of driving data in one single day because they feed into the same neural network. So another thing a lot of people don't know about Tesla, they have built neural networks. They have been building neural networks for a while now. It's just that neural network has been fed into their cars to create autonomous self-driving. But that neural network can transfer to many other models. For example, right, in the $1 trillion comp package that Elon Musk just got approved, one of the prerequisites was for XAI, his AI company, to invest in Tesla. You might be wondering, well, why does that make sense? It makes a lot of sense because he can feed the Tesla data from its cars, all the camera data, all the sensor data, into his XAI model. What happens? The XAI model becomes super intelligent and
Mm-hmm.
can now solve some other kind of problem that it otherwise couldn't have as an
Mm-hmm.
LLM, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other robot that he's building is the Optimus robot, which again is a humanoid robot which will kind of work in factories, work in your house, and kind of like solve a bunch of physical problems for you. Sounds insane, right? Sounds like it's not realistic. These robots are on the cusp of becoming a reality, is my simple thesis. And I think that over the next maybe not in the next year or so, but definitely over the next 5 years, you're going to see a huge upswing of this. And Tesla is simply at the lead right now. There's no other major competitor.
I saw a tweet this morning and it just said, buy FSD, it comes with a car. And for the listeners, FSD is fully self-driving, which just puts
That's
into
good.
context, like, when you're buying a fully self-driving vehicle, you're not competing with normal cars anymore. Like I actually test
No.
drove a Tesla a couple weeks ago for the first time, and I was like, it was an aha moment for me where I was like, wow, this
Yeah.
thing is at an inflection point. It is very, very close. If
Hmm.
not, every time I'm in a car now driving and someone almost hits me, I'm like, Oh, I wish that was a fully self-driving car, because that
Yeah.
mistake they just made makes no sense, right? Whereas these
Yep.
cars are just so much better than the average human. Right now, it's I think 7 times
Yep.
less in terms of accidents, minor and major accidents. So it is incredible in what they're doing, and I just think that product is just going to be so much bigger than anyone realizes, both from a fully self-driving car, and then when you turn that into a humanoid robot, the opportunities for this thing are literally unlimited on what it can do for people. So Elon says all the time, it's going to be the biggest product, I think, in history, is what he calls it.
Yeah, it's funny. I would describe full self-driving, Tesla's autonomous driving, as the world's best hidden AI model. It's
Yeah,
there in
right,
plain sight, but
right.
most people don't know that it's an AI model behind the scenes.
Yes,
That situation you just described of testing out a Tesla and it just kind of like seamlessly navigating in autonomous driving. What's awesome about this is if a Tesla on the other side of the world, right, enters into an accident and narrowly avoids it, the next day your Tesla can do the exact same thing.
right,
You don't
right.
get that with Google's Waymo. It's not the same kind of neural network. Tesla's
Mm,
neural network is very useful for them. Another thing that I forgot to mention is I've spoken a lot about Google's TPUs and that being their moat to compete with Nvidia, right?
yep,
Did you know that Tesla has their own version of a TPU? It's called their AI 4 chip. They're about to release their AI 5 chip, right? And this is specifically designed to enable AI within their robots. It's going to go
mm,
into their Tesla car. It's going to go into their Optimus humanoid robot, right? But I'm just going to point out, I'm not saying Tesla's trying to compete with NVIDIA. I don't think they are. But the fact that they have this vertically integrated stack of AI model, hardware through their AI chips, and then you've got their kind of robots at the top, aka their software apps, is a force to probably be reckoned with. It's the same kind of pattern playing out. It's definitely a
right.
more riskier bet, but I think it's going to play out.
So it's clear that, well, for anyone who's tried it, a fully self-driving car is going to be massive. It's clear that humanoid robots are going to be a massive, massive product. Why is Tesla going to win that? So Tesla currently, and especially when we think about it as an investment, Tesla's like a 250 PE ratio or whatever it is, right? So obviously people think that it's going to. But what is the moat that Tesla has? And I think it's very similar to what we're talking about with Google. But I think like Google has Waymo, right? So it also has self-driving cars around the world. And there are a bunch of humanoid robot companies coming out. I think Figure is one of them, and there's a few others. Why is Tesla going to win that?
Oh, easy. So number one, Tesla versus Waymo are two completely different beasts, and Tesla is going to win. And this is me saying this as a Google fan. The reason why I'm saying that is Waymo uses LiDAR, LIDAR, as their self-autonomous driving system. That shit doesn't scale.
Right.
If I were to play out the same example of a Waymo car being in an accident, the next day your Waymo car wouldn't know about that, how to resolve that accident. It will enter the
Right.
same accident in the same way. The way that Tesla has built out their autonomous AI model for self-driving is extremely unique and scalable. Number two, you mentioned that there are so many other robot companies out there that are building, right? Cool. Find me a robot company that can scale as quickly as Tesla will. Elon has all of the manufacturing pipeline set up. It's one thing creating a cool invention, completely different beast scaling it out.
Right.
Nvidia is that's why Nvidia is so unique. They're not just such an amazing innovator, they're an amazing scaler. That's why
Mm.
they've been able to dominate, right? There might be many companies out there that want Google's TPUs. Are they going to get them? No, because they're in low supply right now. That's not Google's bread and butter, but it is Nvidia's, right? In the same way Tesla is for robots, I think they compare to like the Figures or the Unitrees of the world. Elon is a crazy scaler. And that brings me to my third point. They have Elon Musk at the heart of all of this. And I know this makes me sound like I'm an Elon fanboy. I have criticized Elon quite a lot for a few different things, and I've been proven wrong on all accounts. So I've learned to shut my mouth and just let him
Right.
cook.
100%. This is fantastic. I feel like we could talk for literally hours on this. And Ejaaz, we're going to have to have you come back on maybe more frequently, because you're
Please.
just a wealth of knowledge here. So it's very clear Google, Tesla are your two biggest bets,
Yep.
at least your where you in terms of how you're playing this kind of AI world. I just want to ask you one more question before we leave. What else are we missing? We've talked about some of the biggest companies in the world. Is there anything else that really excites you that, isn't from the conversations we've had? Just in terms of like, where else should our audience be looking to try to understand this new AI world?
Cool. So I would say you need to look at compute, so the hardware providers, but don't look at the obvious ones. So here's my thesis. We do not have near enough compute to supply all of the demand for AI right now.
Mm-hmm.
The obvious buy is Nvidia. Maybe the second obvious buy is Google via their TPUs. The less obvious buys are companies that you call neo cloud providers. So CoreWeave is like the most obvious example, right? Which, by the way, is down, I think, 25 to 30% since its quarterly earnings, which might be like, oh my God, that's like completely bearish, right? What happened? If you look into the reason why that happened, it's because they're not projected to deliver the amount of compute that they needed to by the end of the year. That's the only reason.
Right.
And
Construction delays or something.
Dude, it was literally construction delays. I'm not even joking. That's a problem that will be resolved. But it wasn't because their hardware was shit. It was because they couldn't deliver the thing fast enough. And so speculative mania rose and they were like, oh my God, we're in a bubble. No, if you look at their GPUs that they're renting out, they're booked out 6 months in advance. Kyle, GPUs that are 8 years old, they have Nvidia A100s, are booked out 6 months in advance. Their CPUs are booked out. CPUs have got nothing to do with training AI. Is booked out. I'll say no more. But yeah.
Okay. I love it. Well, this was absolutely fantastic. We really, really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your insights. And as I said, to the audience and to you, we're going to have to get you back on. So thanks again. For the listeners, go check out Limitless. You can hear Ejaaz talk a couple times a week on there. And it's a phenomenal podcast. So I highly recommend you guys check that out as well. Ejaaz, where else can they find you if they want to follow what you're talking about?
If you want to hear some of my more unfiltered thoughts, I'm on X tweeting all the time. I think my handle is here, but it's at CryptoPunk7213. Yeah, give me a follow. Let me know your thoughts, especially if you disagree. Let me know. I love to test my theses, so the more controversial, the better. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Love that. Thanks, everyone, for listening. Jess, thanks so much for coming on. Everyone else, take care. We'll see you guys in the next episode.
Want to stay ahead of the biggest technological shift in history? Subscribe now to get insights straight from the sharpest minds in tech and finance. Quick legal note, this show's for educational purposes only. Nothing here is financial advice. Investing always carries risk. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the next one.